So many in the pro-Israel camp will make the case that Israel lies at the forefront of saving the West, saving Western civilization. And Israel is you take out Israel and then the dominoes all fall. The Islamist expansion and, destruction of the Western order will be upon all of us. And many people make that case and they say that's what Israel is. It's a Western country and it represents Western interests and values. And that's what this is all about. I have to say that this fundamentally misunderstands what Israel is, who the Jewish people are, and what the Jewish people are meant to be. And actually, this thinking will, God forbid, prolong the conflict. It's so important that we actually learn to listen to the other side and the complaints and accusations made by the Israel haters. Ultimately, Israel's fighting a war against deeply religious people in the Muslim world. And they often try to justify what they're doing to a Western secular audience. Now, this issue that I'm talking about extends far beyond Israel, actually. The rise of radical Islam and religious extremism is something the whole West is facing. For the Jewish people to think, well, we're just firmly on the Western side, the secular Western side, is really to make a fundamental error. For all their evil ideas and extremism and everything, the radical Muslims and the preachers that draw them in, not just in the Middle East, but in the Western world, they're tapping into a moral, spiritual vacuum, bankruptcy that exists in the West, a sense of meaninglessness. People need a sense of meaning, identity, belonging, sense of community that actually transcends our basic physical needs and requirements. Even more important than that. That's the fundamental mistake people make about thinking, oh, just give them Palestinian statehood and give them rights, and if we just give them all of that and more aid, then they'll be happy. No. This is about deep religious beliefs and a sense of what their calling and purpose is. And they believe that their calling and purpose is to destroy Israel. The belief is wrong, but the desire for a sense of transcendent purpose for why we're all here on this earth, that's very legitimate, and that needs to be addressed. And that the Western secular world is not addressing and not answering. And so for the Jewish people, for Jews, to place ourselves firmly in that camp without making this clear distinction is very dangerous. It's amazing, actually, that Israel really exists on a map at the center of the world. It's at the center of the East and the West coming together and meeting. It's at the center of 3 continents meeting: Africa, Asia, and Europe. It's at the heart of what's known as the Fertile Crescent. And the Star of David, which has now come to represent the Jewish people, actually, as you'll notice, has 2 triangles that kind of cross together and meet. And that is meant to represent something profound, and I want to explain what that is. The Jewish people are not meant to be like any other nation. They're meant to be God's moral teachers, to teach the world about why we're here, what God wants of all of us, how he needs all of us, how to serve him properly, what his view is on right and wrong. And we've already transformed a lot of the world's values in that regard. The majority of the world worships the God of Abraham. But that's always been our mission. So to firmly place ourselves into a camp that just says, no, we're Western secular, is a disaster. And more than that, it's a disaster for those who are deeply seeking a sense of meaning that will end up being drawn into all kinds of dangerous, extreme ideologies. And these are ideologies that don't provide the path of God's often much more balanced approach to life's moral questions. So we're actually meant to be a nation that provides those answers. So to place ourselves firmly in one camp over the other. No, we're meant to actually provide that synthesis and that direction. People who think secularism, no sense of spirituality, no sense of moral purpose, absolute morals is the way, clearly that's failing in the Western world. But then again, religious extremism, people who think that extremism is the answer, is also clearly destructive. The Jewish people are already positioned at the center of things. They have the world's magnifying glasses on them because they know, perhaps even subconsciously, deep down, that this is where the answers are going to come from. So it manifests negatively in anti-Semitism and attention on Israel's war, but actually, this is just a natural result of the world understanding that Israel are going to provide these answers and this direction. So the Star of David is meant to represent the synthesis of heaven meeting earth, of God's will, desire to dwell in this world, God's presence becoming manifest in this world, being enacted. The Star of David has a triangle coming down and a triangle coming up to show that synthesis of God's values meeting earth, and the Jewish people meant to be the vessels, the teachers for providing that new reality. So it's so important that if we actually want to solve this conflict, we keep thinking, well, we just got to stand with our Western allies and just hope that the West thrives and succeeds, and that's how this will be solved. For as long as the Muslim and Arab world see Israel as this Western outpost, they won't respect it. They'll think it's phony, consider it illegitimate. They respect people that invoke the name of God. They respect people who actually believe in transcend and teach transcendent purpose. So we're never going to solve this by just speaking in a Western secular tone. We have to tell the Muslim world in particular about the Jewish people's divine purpose and our justification for that land being based on divine decree, not on a United Nations vote. This is the real key that's been missing. So it's so important that we make this clear distinction. And I have to tell you that if ultimately the Muslim world and so many people that are drawn to radical Islam, if that's coming from just this deep sense, this absolutely legitimate sense of desiring purpose and a sense of meaning for why we're here, then I actually think if we speak in this tone, it will resonate. It's not just me that's saying this. Ed Hussein, an Islamic scholar who I interviewed a few weeks ago, we put the video up on JTV. He said, if the Jewish people say, we belong in this land because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob directed us to this land and assigned it to us, and yes, we really are that same Jewish people descended from the children of Israel, the seed of Jacob. He said they'll have a lot more time for that. It's actually a great compliment to the human being that so many of us, all of us actually, have this desire, this need to know why we're here, to have a sense of meaning and purpose that transcends our basic physical needs. It's a real compliment to us. Animals don't seem to have that, certainly not in the same way. We're not comfortable if we don't know why we're here. Rabbi Manis Friedman was once approached by a woman that said she wanted to commit suicide. And he said, why? She said, because everything's meaningless. Everything's meaningless. It's all meaningless. So he said, okay, everything's meaningless. Why have you got to commit suicide? Just hang about. Wait till you get old and die naturally? Why have we got to die now? You know why? Because we as human beings can't bear the fact, we can't stand the fact that there's no meaning. We need to know why we're here. Why? Because that indicates that we have a sense that there really is a reason for why we're here deep down. The world is not an accident. The world has a purpose, an essential divine purpose. It's a purpose which the Jewish people were charged to bring to the whole world. And people say, well, that's just, who do you think you are? This is a choice that God made. It doesn't, when you're a nation that's chosen for a role, it doesn't mean everyone else is rejected. It means you're chosen for a specific role. So do you want to be jealous and resentful for that for the rest of your life? Or do you actually want to have pride that you're living in a world with purpose? And just as the Jewish people were chosen for a mission, so too were you chosen to be here on earth for a specific purpose. And actually, if God wants the Jewish people to teach his vision to the whole world, doesn't that make the world in some ways the end? Doesn't that make the world the exceptionally important? The student or the teacher, in some ways, who is more important in that in the classroom? So if we just articulate these things more clearly, I think it will have a significant effect. Transformative, actually. So the main point of this video is we have to stop pretending that we're a nation like all others. And we have to stop saying that this is just a fight for the West. Yes, that may be part of this, but it goes far deeper. And if we actually want to resolve the conflict, then we need to start speaking with the voice that we were designed and destined to provide the world with.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.